Hi, everyone. I'm Patrick from Guild of Imagination. Each week, I meet with one of our guild masters to introduce you to the fantastic people that make our programs such a supportive and creative space for kids. Today, I am here with Shayne Taylor to chat about what he loves about working with kids in our D&D and VR sessions. Hey, Shayne, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you today, Pat?
I am doing fantastic. Shayne is also our manager of virtual programs here at Guild of Imagination, and so if you're ever have a question or need to ask us something, you can reach out, and Shayne will probably be the one that will respond.
Sorry.
uh, cool. So I just want to get right into it. And so, can you tell us a little bit about your background, Shayne, and what brought you here to Guild of Imagination?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have always grown up loving fantasy stories, whether it be writing, reading, running around the woods, pretending to be Aragorn from Lord of the Rings. And so that's always just played a really, really important part in my life, whether it be some kind of escape or outlet for creativity. And I've also just always loved working with kids, folks in my neighborhood that I've gotten to walk to school with, volunteering programs at the local library. It's always been really, really important to me to find ways to give back to my community. And I think that kids, working with kids, helping to develop and create safe spaces for them has always been really, really important to me as well. So when I found Guild of Imagination and learned that it was really just kind of a combination of those two passions of mine, I couldn't wait to try and sign up.
That's awesome, and I am very glad that you did sign up. Shane's been with us almost since the beginning of Guild Imagination, almost from the very beginning. So that's awesome.
Coming up on
Uh,
3 years.
Very cool. Um, so just to kind of go off of that a little bit, and talking about how you like working with kids, what is something that you love about working with kids here in our D&D program?
I think the biggest thing that stands out for me is the ability to provide spaces that I didn't necessarily get to partake in when I was growing up. And so as much as fantasy played such a huge, huge part in my upbringing and things like that, I didn't get that from my parents. It was something I kind of found on my own. And, I had one or two friends that I could kind of play with and things like that. But I didn't have D&D. I didn't really know about tabletop games and things like that. And so getting a chance to create those spaces for kids and to ensure that as they're growing up, they have people that get to kind of show them these games, and not just to help them find those avenues, but to help create groups to see those long lasting friendships that can form. Kids halfway across the country or even the world finding common interests and creating those long lasting friendships is absolutely incredible to see.
I 100% agree with that, and I know that even from my own childhood, I found D&D fairly early through my uncle, but nobody around me played, and I think I've shared that with you many times, but it was frustrating, right? Like there was this thing that I loved, and I thought I would love to do it, and I never really could play it, and I know that even today, with like YouTube and Twitch and stuff like that, and kids can kind of watch these games, there still is a little bit of a hurdle with finding people to play with, right? Like even with how popular it is today, there is still a little bit of a hurdle with that, and so that's really cool to hear, and I think it is still relevant even today with all the technology we have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very very cool. So moving from that, there's a lot of words that kind of get thrown around when talking about skills and benefits for playing D&D, whether you're an adult or a kid. And so I'm curious. You've run a lot of D&D for kids now with Guild of Imagination. Um, do you have an example that you want to share, or a story that you can think of, or something that's come up, or benefits that you've seen that kids have taken outside of the sessions?
There are So many benefits to D&D. I think one of the greatest things about D&D as a learning tool is that it's kind of hiding the learning. It's like hiding the vegetables. If you want to talk about trying to get kids to eat and things like that. Um, D&D hides the vegetables. It hides the math. It hides the literacy. But all of those things are there. And so you've got the arithmetic, you've got addition, maybe multiplication and division. And so there are all kinds of very, very tangible, um, even more traditional learning kind of skills that we get to see within D&D. For me personally, the things that always get me really, really excited are to see the boosts in confidence,
Mm.
whether that be in social settings, learning to role play, speak in their characters' voices, putting themselves into those positions with other people. And not only that, but also problem solving. I really like to put a big focus on putting my players in a position to work out the minutia of a problem themselves, and to see if they can come to that solution, and getting to see that light bulb go off when a kid starts to get something is just the most incredible thing. And I think all of those are translatable skills. All of this is stuff that critical thinking. It's just ways of getting kids to look at things a little bit differently, and that is something they can always take with them into other aspects of their life, whether it be looking at math problems at school, talking about their feelings and emotions with family members. All of that is stuff that D&D and other tabletop role-playing games just really brings to the fore without knocking anybody over the head with it. Like I said, it's kind of hidden underneath behind the gameplay, and I really really appreciate that.
Yeah, that is, I love that answer, because I can think of, just to relate that, as far as like confidence and kind of problem solving, or like interacting with the other kids and the DM, and how that relates outside of the game. I can think of one specific thing that one of my learners over the years, I got a message from a parent, and she basically told me like, we're so happy we found this, right? Like, you've provided this outlet where the learner, um, was able to take like these negotiation skills, right? Like he was able to kind of, outside of the game at home with his siblings, he was able to, if there was a conflict that arose between, the kids, usually that is, a big deal in the house, right? And there might be some yelling or fighting or things like that. And he
No,
was essentially able to like hear out the other siblings' opinions, right? Or like what they wanted to do, and kind of calm the situation down. And she relayed this to me, and that goes in perfectly with what you're saying. And I think that is something that isn't really talked about as much, maybe either, is like that negotiation or
yep.
confidence kind
finding
of building thing.
finding
Yeah,
compromise and
finding
things like that.
compromise. Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah. Very cool. Okay, so I'll get to the last question here. I really appreciate, the insight you've provided so far,
My
and
pleasure.
the last question is around, you know how important it is for Guild of Imagination to have safe, inclusive spaces for kids. It's what I lead with when I bring in new, guild masters, to what we do, and so I'm curious, in your own clubs, what is it that you do to provide that safe, inclusive space for every child that joins?
I think it starts with compassion and empathy, and tying into to what you were saying. The very first thing that we talk to prospective new guild masters is, this is how important it is to us to create these kinds of spaces, to create welcoming environments for kids to come in. And so right off the bat there, every guild master that's part of our organization um, has those qualities. We know that that's important to them as well. And so I think leading with that compassion and empathy within my classrooms, there's also I am very committed to growth and development. And I, no one's always perfect, But if we can find ways to try and improve on situations, if we can learn from past things and try to move forward differently, continue to grow ourselves, I learn from my kids and my families that I get to work with. And I also work very, very closely with our platform's trust and safety teams. It's very, very important to us to make sure that we are upfront and open, accountable for everything. And so I try to make sure that that's always a top priority, is not just to deal with situations as they arise with kids, if there's a disagreement in class that we try to go over and things like that, but also ways that I can improve myself. And so I'm always constantly looking to see how can I continue to evolve, how can I continue to learn and do better by my kids too.
That is really cool, and something that is so awesome to hear, because even though we have we're playing games, we're still in an educational setting, with this, and being a teacher figure, for these kids, and being able uh, to have the insight to know, like, I am also learning. There's new things that are happening in these clubs all the time. These kids are teaching me things. Is so important to being able to provide that area for them to continue to feel comfortable to do these things, right? Like, it gives them an open playing field, as far as, oh wow, like, my teacher learned something from me. Maybe my ideas are, more important, or maybe they mean more than I thought that they did, in some cases, or.
Absolutely. And I think especially when working with kids, we see so much, every generation kind of progresses things a little bit further, pushes, and we talk about compassion and empathy. And I think we're seeing emotional development within kids, hopefully in part because of our programs. But getting to see that, we have to understand that, I come from a previous time than these kids, and every once in a while there are going to be things that have changed and evolved, and making sure that we're keeping up with those kinds of things is so important. It's their worlds and their spaces, and so it can't just be confining them to our understanding of things. We have to adapt and evolve as well, I think so.
Love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Shayne. I appreciate you taking
Thank
the
you.
time to talk to some of our parents and caregivers out there that might be watching, getting to meet you, and for everything you do at Guild of Imagination.
Thank you so
So
much.
thanks again. And for everybody watching, if you're interested and you want to learn more about our Dungeons and Dragons programs or VR programs, you can go over to guildofimagination.com. You can learn about us there, and we hope to see your kid on an adventure soon. So thank you very much, and bye, everybody.